Hello everyone, it's Cassie Trask. Welcome back for another Pearblossom Press video. Today we're going to be using a one light, and I love these. I know I say that every time with every one of the lights, but it's true, I do. We're also going to be using the Pearblossom Press stamp set, typically the same ones that I use, which would be for the back and the push button. And then I thought I would bring in this stamp set. I hadn't played with it yet, and I really wanted to show you a way to stretch your stamps. So we're going to be using that stamp set. That is the Heart Tree and die, and then I'm going to pair it up with the Tiny Halloween stamps and dies. So I did use the birds for one. I'll show you that in the end, but we're also going to use the little Halloween one. I'm going to be using some sentiment stock. You know, I love that for embossing. And then we have some of the translucent vellum along with the world's best foam tape. This is no longer available right now, but there are other options. So what I'm doing right now is I'm starting off by cutting up some mixed media paper. Is this necessary? Probably not, but I wanted it anyway. I forgot to mention I'm using the mushroom border, just the grass, because I wanted to make a little scene back here. I love making scenes, y'all know that. So I did cut that out of some green cardstock, but I did use mixed media paper because I wasn't sure how much I wanted to add to this, and I find that it really blends beautifully. So I have some Simon Hurley Create inks. This is a new one called Pompous. It's like a lilac periwinkle type color. It's so pretty. And I'm using one of those blending brushes from the Simon Hurley Create line. And I'm just blending that down to the bottom. Oh, not all the way to the bottom. I'm going to check and see how far down I need it to go. We're going to go with a little bit of an ombre look. I'm bringing in also some Crown Me. It's another new ink to that Stellar ink line. And so we'll just blend that down, and then we'll bring in the Pompous again and blend that in just to make sure everything is blended nicely. These ink pads are nice and juicy, which is great. And so I love that. I'll clean up my mess a little bit, and then I'm going to bring in another new ink called Shady. It's basically just a dark gray. And so we're going to use that color very, very lightly around the edges of this piece. You almost can't even tell. And then I'm also going to do it on the grass. I am going for a Halloween look, like I said. I guess you probably figured that when I said I was using the Tiny Halloween stamps and dies. So we're going to try to make this a little bit eerie as Lawn Fawn can be, right? Lawn Fawn's too cute to be eerie, I know. But that Shady really does help. So we'll clean up our mess again. And then finally, I want to add some of this solar spray. I'm just going to splatter it on the background. This is called Royal Flush. It is a purple, and it works beautifully on darker cardstocks, but it also looks really good on colored inks. And so because this is purple, it's going to give a little bit of shimmer, and it's going to be purple. I mean, it matches that background really nicely. So you can kind of see it in the light, and it just gives a light purple shimmer. So pretty. And so they have it in various colors. We'll go ahead and glue down our grass because everything is nice and dry, and this will help us for the next parts of our design. But I'm going to set that off to the side, and we'll start doing our coloring. I did stamp out all of my images onto some Express It cardstock, and I used the Stellar ink called Black Widow, because that works really well with alcohol markers. And then I'll put all those colors up on the screen. It's funny, what I'm coloring is all just grays. And I don't know why in my mind I was thinking it was going to be more color, but it's just not. The color all comes from that background with the grass and the blending. So we're using a red gray for the leaves. I know there's not really a tree out there with black leaves. I get that. But I really wanted those darker leaves, and I thought that would look good on more of a birch type tree. And so we've got the red gray number 7, and then I am going to bring in that red black. So that's the darkest one. It does have a very slight hint of red to it. And that is just like a straight black, really, just with that hint of red. And so I wouldn't want to come in with just that dark color, because then you wouldn't be able to see the lines for the leaves. So I'm just using this very sparingly on those leaves to add a little bit of dimension to them. And that's it. Next, we'll bring in a cool gray color for our ghost. And then for our little kitty cat, we're using some warm grays in the color 5 and 7. And that's it, because the spiders are already colored. So we'll bring in those matching dies, tack that down with a little bit of mint tape. And obviously for the spider, I'll have to run that through a few times because I did stamp it out 3 times. But once all of those dies are attached, I'm going to bring in my little Spellbinders Scout because it works perfectly for these little images. This always sits on my desk. I don't always show it in my videos, but it does sit on my desk all the time. And then we'll get everything else die cut out, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next part. What I like about this die for the tree is that it does cut out the pieces in between, so I just love those extra little details when it comes to dies that are a little bit bigger. And then what I next want to do is cut out that heart. That's where the light is going to shine through. That's why I didn't color it. So I've brought in my scissors, put a little hole, and I'm coming in from behind with my scissors, and I'm cutting right along the line. So there will be a little bit of white showing. So what I like to do is I grab a marker. This is a Memento black marker, and I come in from behind, and I just use that to color those edges so it doesn't look so stark white. Now we'll place that onto our piece, and I'm going to use a pencil to mark where that heart is. There is a die in the Heart Tree and Dies stamp set that cuts out one of the hearts, not this particular heart, but it works well for this. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out. And then we'll use, here's our card base, and I'm going to mark on our card base where that is going to be so that I can get my one light ready. And the card base measured 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches and was scored at 4 1/4. These are so easy to put together. You just pop it out, put the light or put the battery in, plus side up, and you're good to go. Now I'm marking where that's going to be because I actually want to make a little trap door for the mechanism. I don't always do this, but I definitely wanted to on this one. This way the recipient can access the battery if needed, or I can as well. And all I'm using is an X-Acto knife along with a cutting mat, and I'm just cutting around where I marked so that way I can open up that trapdoor and reach the mechanism and the battery if needed. But otherwise it stays closed. It's not really a big deal. And so then we put some double-sided adhesive on the back of our one light, peel off that release paper, make sure the light is where you want it inside that heart, and then your trapdoor is able to be accessed. So I'll put that over the top. Yep, the light's going to work great. Next, I'm going to bring in some of that translucent vellum. I'm cutting a strip of it. I'm just actually going to fold it in half. And that's going to go behind the tree. Well, actually, it'll go behind the heart on the back of our panel, but I'm going to attach down my tree first using some liquid glue, line everything up over that heart, and then we'll attach down the vellum to the back. Just making sure there isn't any glue poking out or anything like that, even though this glue does dry clear. We'll put a little heart of glue around that, attach down part of our vellum that I've folded in half, and then just put a little bit of glue on top of that. And that just makes that vellum extra thick. Next, I'm bringing in the foam tape. You just want some foam tape that's about 3 millimeters thick. This stuff is great, but it isn't available right now, so I should start really using this sparingly. Hopefully it will be back, but you know, there you go. All right, so that's put down. Now we can peel off all of our release paper, and we can put our panel down on top. Now, I screwed up by putting the panel down first, and I thought, ooh, how's this going to work? So I actually meant to do more stamping on there. But I do like to live crazy, like, you know, I am dangerous. Just kidding. But I am going to stamp while it's on there. I'm going to give it a shot. If it doesn't work, I can always stamp those bats separately and die cut them out. I didn't want to have to do that, and thankfully I don't have to, but we're attaching down our little ghost like he's coming out of the tree. We've got our little spiders hanging down from the branches, which is fun. And then I do take that last spider web and I attach it. It's a little too close to the push button, but I attach it down, and then I realize that's not going to work. So I move it because I'm like, that's exactly where the push is. So we need to move our spider. We're going to push him onto the other side. He's hanging down from the tree, and then we can put our push button, which I stamped ahead of time, onto some of that black sentiment with some clear embossing ink and covered with white embossing powder. So here it is. I brought in those little bats, and thankfully my Black Widow stamp is very inky, so I don't have to push too hard, and the foam tape keeps everything nice and stiff, and because I'm using mixed media paper, which is a little bit thicker, I don't have to worry about my paper caving in, which is great. So I'm able to just stamp these bats all over that background, which is so fun. Just wish I had done it sooner, but I love this. I think that looks so cute and eerie. And so now I need to stamp out my sentiment, which is going to be "You are spooktacular." And I'm going to do that on some more of that black sentiment stock. So I will bring in an anti-static powder tool, and we will rub that across the back. I'm inking that up with a clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to cover that with a fine detail white embossing powder. And then we'll hit that with our heat tool. This black sentiment stock is so perfect for any sort of embossing because it's so super smooth. If you have problems with the black cardstock that you have and you're trying to emboss on it, I recommend giving this a try, just to let you know. So we've trimmed that down. It actually ends up, I don't need to trim off the edges, at least I decide not to. So we're going to go ahead and glue that down. I do bring in the Pearblossom Press A2 ruler just to make sure that everything is on there straight. That thing is great. It's one of those hidden tools that I use very frequently, but it sits off the side on my desk and I love it. But take a look. Isn't that fun? So stretching those stamps, I did make another one, and this one just has a full-on fall theme. Isn't that cute? You could make it look like spring if you really wanted. I just think this is such a cute stamp, and pair it with that one light and you've got a total win. So I hope you like this video. If you do, please hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Huge thanks to all of you that use my affiliate links, that watch my videos, like them, all of those things help me to continue producing videos, so I really do appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by, and I will see you soon.